Hello there, Jeff Cloud here. I'm finishing up in part two of home plans and housing. And where we left off from part one was I had gone over 7 of the 9 categories of housing that Crossroads Reentry has helped people with in the past, namely thousands of inmates in prisons, jails, or after they had gotten out, getting a place that would be a roof over their head. And I'm going to jump right in and pick up with our 8th category. Our 8th category is homeless on the street after the shelters have closed. I've gotten many calls over the years, sometimes 8 o'clock in the evening, 10 o'clock in the evening. Of course, I cut my phone off when I go to bed, usually 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. But before going to bed, I've gotten several calls, homeless on the street. Mr. Cloud, I'm homeless on the street, got nowhere to go, and I prefer not to be on the street, sleeping tonight. And we do have one ace up our sleeves, I call it, to help somebody in that situation. Here's what we've done in the past, is we have recommended that that person get to a hospital, sleep in a waiting room, but not the waiting room on the first floor that is typically the emergency room. The reason for that is plenty of people are going to be in the emergency room. They go in there sleeping. They may very well be arrested for vagrancy and end up in jail. But the vast majority of hospitals have floors where there's surgeries going on during the day, and none of those are happening at night. For example, cardio floor might be the 3rd floor. They do all their surgeries roughly 5:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening or so. So if the man goes by there at 9 o'clock at night, he is able to sleep in a chair, maybe for 6 or 8 hours. Doesn't sound like much, but sleeping in a chair for 6 hours is probably equivalent of getting 3 in a bed. And at least the man will be more functional the next day, and he can get by the shelter and, of course, give us a call from the shelter and have a programmer's email or whatever the case is, and we can start getting them into transitional housing, et cetera, so on and so forth. But it does work, and it has worked for others. So that was our 8th category. And then the 9th of 9 categories is what we call just regular shelters. And the vast majority of towns that are any size have shelters. For example, Charlotte, we've got a big shelter here called the men's shelter. We have a women's shelter as well too. Towns that are 50,000, 60,000 people, they have those as well. Now, smaller towns, they typically may have a shelter, may not. For example, I grew up in the little town of Wadesboro, North Carolina. And in Wadesboro, there's 2 shelters where somebody could stay for 7 days, I think it is. And that's all they've got. They got no transitional houses. They got no Oxford houses, but they do have those 2 shelters that somebody can stay. But we at Crossroads, we do have information on those shelters, and of course we typically include those with our home plans that people get before they get out of jail or prison, etc. And if somebody calls us from the street, we have those resources fairly readily available, and we can share that information with them if they will reach out to us at Crossroads. Now, I want to go to our 3rd Roman numeral in this series. Our first Roman numeral was what Crossroads Reentry has done and currently does and does not do. Our 2nd Roman numeral was the 9 different categories. Our 3rd Roman numeral here is going to be important words from Crossroads Reentry's experience helping thousands with home plans. These are just tidbits of things that I've seen cause problems with people being able to get a place when they don't do these things or do these things. Number 1, if somebody's willing to go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and or NA, Narcotics Anonymous, on the outside, going to about 3 meetings per week in the evening, they increase, or that person increases their chances of getting into a place before getting out of an incarceration facility by 5-fold. 5 times greater chance, usually 5 times quicker as well. And the reason for that is these charities realize 90% of the people in prisons and jail are in there because of something to do with alcohol and or drugs. Therefore, for them to be good stewards of the financial monies given them, they want to make sure that somebody is going to stay sober. So you want to basically make sure that the person understands that. Here's another very important word, if you will, from Crossroads Reentry here. Strongly suggest don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. What we mean by that is so many people get focused on one place. I'm going to such and such a place, and they like it based upon information or whatever the case is. They focus all of their energy. That's close on their side of town to their old girlfriend or whatever. And of course, what we typically see the vast majority of times is when somebody focuses on one place before they get out trying to get into it, they typically will be homeless on the street. I use an analogy of bird hunting. And for those that don't know bird hunting, there's one realistic way to go bird hunting. It's with a shotgun that has a shell that puts out a spray of pellets. And of course, there's 40, 50, 100 pellets in that one shotgun shell as it goes off. Very likely to shoot down the bird. Why? They scattered 40, 50, 100 pellets up there. Well, it's the same way when people go off for a home plan before getting out. Reach out to all of them. That's kind of like the shotgun shell with the pellets. Now, what some people try when they're only going after one place, it's kind of like trying to go bird hunting with a rifle, meaning only one bullet fires out. More than likely, vast majority of the time, it's going to miss the bird. So we tell them, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Go after all the places. Here's another word. We know that people are all across the spectrum when they work with government. I've worked with some people who are called, passionate, extremely good at what they do, and I've seen others that the best I can ascertain is they are there only to draw a paycheck, period. And everything in between. So we say this to try to help those who are incarcerated. Case managers, programmers, counselors, namely government workers at incarceration facilities, some of them do good jobs, some of them only drawing a paycheck. But when it comes to home plans, some know tons of places for a home plan. Some know of none. So we suggest that the inmate take the bull by the horn, but keep your case manager, counselor, programmer in the loop. So in other words, inmates take the bull by the horn. The best way is to reach out to us here at Crossroads Reentry, get your home plan. Start reaching out to places if you can, write and make direct phone calls. If you can't, maybe you have to pass that through to a programmer, but at least they have a list and there's some accountability, because you can say, hey, have you had a chance to look into my home plan? And they know that you gave them something that has list on there, then they're more likely to do something. And if we just believe that's the best way to roll. Case manager, for example, give them the Crossroads Reentry home plan that we send to you. And then secondly, make sure that you keep those case managers in the loop. The information, here's another word. Every word of every Crossroads Reentry home plan document is important. Don't just start calling. Many people do that. They're homeless on the street. Why? Inside our documents may have a listing. Of course, we'll have a listing of places to call, but there's also a paragraph or so before it that says what you need to say to get in for the inmate, for example. So make sure that whoever takes off with our home plans, they know every word of it, generally like the back of their hand. What our experience has been, those that do, they get into places. Those that don't, don't. There's another word is the early bird, but not too early, catches the worm. What do you mean by that? jump on the home plan. 5 months if writing, 4 months if it's direct phone call, email coming through to us, or whatever the case is. That's the best time to jump on the home plan. That's the early bird. Too early, somebody trying to reach out to us a year or 2 years before they get out. It's not going to work. They're not going to hold bids for 4 months or more, so that person will be wasting their time. Plus, Crossroads Reentry is going to be developing more and newer information to help with getting the home plan. Here's another major word. I have seen a major shift in needs since 2007 to 2018 here. And that shift, major shift in needs, has gone from jobs to housing home plans. The reason for that is, of course, the economy crashed out 2007, 2008. Places weren't hiring, wouldn't release money, no growth, blah, blah, blah. It was tough for people with plenty of degrees to get a job. Inmates, ex-offenders, people with records, people with felonies, very tough for them. I used to get 70% of the calls that would come in per year, and hundreds of calls coming in every year. They wanted jobs back in, say, 2009. Now, we still get close to 1,000 calls a year in 2018. I'm going to say, best guess right off the top of my head, 20% are for jobs now, and maybe as high as 70% of the reach outs for places to live or housing. So I share that to share that, for our teachers with Crossroads, we currently are going through some curricula changes to reflect that. And I'm just throwing that out there for people to realize that the tougher thing now is housing for people coming from jails or prisons versus 10 years ago it used to be jobs. Roman numeral 4. In Roman numeral 4, what we're going to take a look at here is what I call the 7 questions. The 7 questions are questions that we at Crossroads need to be answered before we can head off with an appropriate, customized home plan for any inmate getting ready to get out or anybody that calls us on the street. And you'll see these as I unpack them. You'll understand them as I unpack them. The first question is we have to ask, are you, the inmate or the person on the street coming out of the incarceration facility, a sex offender, yes or no? And the reason for this is, for example, in North Carolina, we only know of about 30 places total that will take in sex offenders. Yet we probably know of 500 places that we could get a person into coming out of the jail or prison if they're not a sex offender. And naturally what we don't want to do is send somebody who's a sex offender into that other area where they don't allow sex offenders in. So that's the reason for that question. Second question we typically ask is this: when do you get out to the inmate? Of course, if they're already out, that's a moot point. But let's say it is an inmate. When do you get out? Now, the reason for that is if they're writing too early, we're going to write them back and say, write us at 5 months with these 7 questions answered. If they're getting out, say, in 2 weeks, it may shift a plan A, plan B kind of thing. Let me explain what I mean by that. Typically, if somebody writes me at 5 months, I'm going to give them the transitional houses most of the time as plan A. And then that would be 4 months out, they'd start writing them. Well, plan B might be the Oxford houses, which won't start entertaining them coming in until about 2 months out. But now let's say somebody else writes or reaches out to us and they've only got 1 month to go. I'll reverse that process. Why? The Oxford houses would be the best tool to get somebody in at that point in time, because the transitional houses many times can't even get the information on an application, get it before they're bored, get answers on who's going to come in, because sometimes they take 2 months or more just to do that process. So that's the reason we're asking out when. Number 3 question is willing to go to AA or NA on the outside. We're simply looking, that's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. We're looking for a yes or no there. If they are, it opens up 5 times more possibilities. If somebody is totally refusing to go to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, I'm not even going to share, for example, the Oxford House information with them. So that's what we're asking for there. Question number 4, where do you want to go to? There's only one bad answer to that question anywhere. And the reason for that is literally could probably in the nation, United States of America, could probably come up with, that might take me months to do it, multi-thousand places somebody could go to. So if somebody says anywhere, I'm not going to provide them with multi-thousand possible places and waste 2 months worth of my time on that one particular answer. What we're looking for there is a specific town, city, county, or possibly country, because we have done international home plans as well too. We've had people get home plans for places in Brazil, places in Mexico, etc., so on and so forth. So, but even then, we're still looking for like a city in that country as well. So that's what we're looking for, pretty much city, town, county kind of deal. That narrows it down. And what we're able to do beyond that is, let's say it's a small rural county and it's got nothing there that could house them transitionally, or no shelters or no Oxford houses. Then what we're going to do, of course, is give them the closest counties to that county where they could have some possibilities. But that was question 4. Question 5 is any money. Again, what we're looking for there is we're looking for an amount of money that they got ready to get a place when they get out. Now, I'm going to unpack that more later in this video on Roman numeral 7, so I'm not going to unpack that one any now. They just simply answer the question, do you have any money ready for when you get out? Most, 80% of people, 0, and I'll just move on from there. Our 6th question really only pertains to prisons in North Carolina. And that 6th question is this: what was your county of conviction? Meaning, what county courthouse did they go to get their sentence that they're currently serving? For example, county conviction Mecklenburg in North Carolina, county conviction New Hanover in North Carolina. And then what that does is that enables us, even if they want to go somewhere else, to give them their county of conviction, because if they don't get anything together on a home plan in the state of North Carolina for the prison system, they dump them out when they get out at the county courthouse of their conviction. So, for example, let's say that somebody got convicted in Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, and yet they want to go to Greensboro, North Carolina, Guilford County when they get out. Well, they'd write us for a home plan. They put in their county of conviction as Mecklenburg. We would send them the Guilford County home plan, but we would also send them the Mecklenburg County home plan in case they don't have anything in place by the time they get out. When they get dumped at the courthouse in Mecklenburg County, they'll know where the shelters are, what transitional houses are there. They can call me up. I can ask them, hey, you got that sheet with you? If you do, these are the places you want to focus on now, etc., so on and so forth. So that's the 6th question. The 7th question is, are you a veteran? Are you a veteran? Meaning, has the person served in the United States military, Army, Marines, blah, blah, blah. If they have, we're going to point them to about a half a dozen charitable organizations we know that will help people possibly get into a place to live coming out of jail or prison, and also give them a lot of connection to be able to circumvent some of the bureaucracy of the Veterans Administration, or VA. So that's why we're asking that question. But those 7 questions again were: number 1, sex offender, yes or no; number 2, out when or when do you get out; number 3, are you willing to go to AA and or NA on the outside, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous; number 4, where do you want to go to; number 5, do you have any money; number 6, what's your county conviction; and number 7 is, are you a veteran? Now, I'm getting ready to move to our Roman numeral 5 in the video. And Roman numeral 5 is inmates and ex-offenders' responsibility. In other words, what's the inmate's responsibility, or the ex-offender, the one that has been locked up but now is on the street trying to find a place? Well, Their responsibility for the most part is getting a home plan in place before getting out and having backup plan or plans in place as well too. What do you mean by that? When we send them the information, they should be able to develop a plan A. This is what my plan A is. I want to go to Buncombe County, Asheville, North Carolina. I want to reach out to these transitional houses. That's my plan A. If that doesn't work out, maybe I can go back to my county of conviction, Cumberland County, North Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina, where the Fort Bragg military is, everybody's heard about in the world. They may decide, okay, there, as long as I would be in a very sober environment, I could do the Oxford houses. So that's my plan B. And plan C is, if I hit the street, I'm calling this Crossroads Reentry crowd, Jeff Cloud, blah, blah, blah. So that person would have a plan A, plan B, plan C. And what we tell them basically is this. It's kind of like jumping out of a plane with a parachute. It's very important to not hit that ground hard. So by having a primary chute and a backup chute, or a plan A and plan B, things go pretty well. So we encourage them that home plans are very important, extremely important to have a place to live when you get out of jail or prison. Therefore, very important stuff. You better have primary plans, backup plans, etc., so on and so forth. That's Roman numeral 5. Roman numeral 6 is who needs to be involved. Who needs to be involved? The inmates need to be working with their case manager or their counselor or their programmer, possibly family, friends, etc., on the home plan, keeping them all in the loop. Why is that important? Let's say that an inmate has a case manager who's in charge of their home plan, but let's say that case manager does nothing but draws a paycheck. So the inmate takes his lead with his home plan. He's reaching out to these transitional houses, writing them, sending applications in. Many times they're asking questions like this. Tell us about your infractions. Tell us about what things you took on the inside to better your life. For example, did you take AA, NA? Did you do Bible study? Did you take Crossroads reentry class? Did you take the substance abuse component of that prison? And the places, transitional houses, are not simply going to take the word of an inmate. What they would do is they would call the case manager and verify. So if they call the case manager and the case manager is clueless on, for example, that the inmate's been reaching out to these places, the first thing the transitional house people realize is this is chaos. This is not organized, and nobody wants to bring chaos into their organization or into their transitional house, if you will. So it's in the inmates' by far best interest to keep everybody in the loop. I'm reaching out to these people. Here's the list. Feel free to make you a copy for your file, case manager. And I'll be reaching out, calling them, or my people, friends, family are going to be calling them. And here's what's going on, so that it brings order to the mix. The second group of people to be involved is help from family or friends who might be able to pay directly to the charity, for example, but they wouldn't give a dime to the inmate getting out. A lot of times families and friends will reach out to us and say, hey, look, I want to help him, but I'm not giving him a dime because he spent all his money on dope and alcohol in the past, and I'm not feeding that monster. So basically what we'll do is we'll get them connected directly with the charity. They can pay the charity, say $500, and get the guy 4 weeks or the lady 4 weeks before they get out of prison paid for. That gives them time to get there, reach out to us, get a job, blah, 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 et cetera, so on and so forth, start paying on their own. The family can help, and they know that it's not going to dope and or alcohol. So that gets the family involved. Who does Crossroads Reentry suggest takes the lead on a home plan? Now, these are key. If the inmate can pretty freely call directly, not collect, because a lot of places aren't going to take collect calls, but if they can call freely direct, and I'm going to say most inmates in the jails and prisons today can do that, and they can write, say, with at least a couple dozen stamps per month, then I think the inmate needs to take the lead. If the inmate can't call direct, but he can write dozens of letters over a couple months, short and to the point, then the inmate needs to take the lead on writing the transitional houses per Crossroads Reentry home plan, and then the family, friend, case manager, programmer, counselor might need to take the lead from the 2-month and less mark. And the reason for that is it turns more to a focus towards the Oxford houses, and thus a lot more need to make phone calls, whereas writing doesn't work. Now, here's a third situation. If the inmate can't freely make calls direct or can't write dozens of letters over a couple months, then the family, friend, case manager, programmer, counselor needs to take the lead. But for all of these scenarios, we at Crossroads Reentry suggest that they always start with a Crossroads Reentry home plan, because now they've got updated current information on, to my knowledge, I don't think anybody in the state of North Carolina, at least for North Carolina, knows more than we do on the home plan possibilities that are out there for people. And I offer as evidence on that 3/4 of the state prisons in North Carolina, approximately 45 of them, have reached out to us in the last year, their case managers who were responsible for home plans, asking for assistance on getting information for home plans. So I say all that I think they need to start off with a Crossroads Reentry home plan. If somebody's got better information, please let me know. I'll be glad to plug into it. Okay, Roman numeral 7, money levels. Money levels. Let me talk a little bit about money levels. 80% of inmates, we asked that question. It was question number 5 in those 7 questions. We asked, how much money do you have available upon getting out? I'm going to say 80% of the inmates we work with have zero getting out. Now, what that means, of course, is we're going to have to point them to charities. No doubt about it. We're not going to try to point them to apartments or private houses that might take, $500 a month for the rent, $500 for the first deposit, and then they got to pay $500. They just don't have that. So it basically means we're going to point to charitable places out there that will typically let them in. The transitional houses we talked about earlier, Oxford houses, about half of them. So that's where 80% goes. So the magical number that they answer is we look at basically 0. 10% of the clients we work with, they can pay up to $125 a week or have somebody else help them to do that. And let's say that it's family member. We typically recommend pay 4 weeks times 125. That's going to be about $500 to get somebody in. Or the man may be out there working a job. He's got $125 coming in per week. But anyhow, when we ask how much money you got available, I can pay $125 a week, whatever the case is. 10% of our people fall in that category. I've estimated that 9% have $1,500 up to $15,000, but mainly around the $1,500, $2,500, $3,000 range. And they can get their own apartments that exclude criminal background checks or private houses, and we'll give them information on that. So that's 9% of the money level that we deal with. And then there's the 1%, or really probably way less than 1%, but I just call it 1% for simple numbers. They're ready to buy their own house. Like I say, that's only been 2 or 3, and I talked a little bit about that back in our 9 categories. And all we do is we coach them on the hows and the why of what to do with their money as far as down payments, making sure they're not upside down at any time. Even if the economy went down and the housing market slipped 15 or 20%, if they got that much down, it's not going to kill them. They can walk away and not be upside down. So those are the 4 money levels that we're looking at when we ask that question that kind of guide us what direction are we headed in based upon those 4 things. Now, Roman numeral 8 and Roman numeral 8, timeline for type of contact. this is what the inmates would need to know. If you're writing Crossroads reentry for a home plan, you need to write 5 months, maybe down as low as 3. Now, we're going to recommend jumping out and being an early bird right at 5 months, but somebody might not get the message or the information that Crossroads is there until 3 months before getting out. That would be still okay. The reason being is we're going to get them the home plan back. Generally, they should be good to go at the 2.5 month mark approximately. So they could still work it by writing. Here's another timeline contact type deal. If it's a North Carolina prison programmer taking the lead, then we recommend at Crossroads that they email us, and the email address is there in your notes under Roman numeral 8, 4clouds@bellsouth.net. Now that's 4, the number 4, at 4clouds, CLOUDS, at bellsouth.net. And for those not from the South, Bell South has 2 L's in it. But they would have the programmer in North Carolina prison system email us. And the reason for that is, I will just be blunt honest, I have discovered, at least in my experience, that the North Carolina DPS, which is the prison system or the agency over the prison system, trying to call back into a prison is the second toughest place that I have ever encountered to call into and try to get things done. The IRS being the first. And anybody that's ever called the IRS knows exactly what I'm talking about there. So what we say is this: I'm working with thousands of home plans a year, don't have time to play phone tag with somebody 12, 14 times trying to get them. In many cases, you reach a desk that nobody's even going to leave a note, blah, 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 blah. So I've just basically left the message on my phone, my personal phone where they call into for these home plans. If you're a North Carolina prison case manager, leave me your email address. If you're anybody else, leave me your phone number. So that's how we want them to come in if it's a programmer, ideally at about the 4-month mark before getting out. If it's family or friend that's going to be taking the lead, then have them call us 4 months before getting out. Call is going to be the best way, because I'm able to ask so many other questions, like even though you're not able to come up with the $500, how about all your family cobbling together? Can you get $500 together in the 4 months that's getting ready to happen? Well, let me check. I probably can. 2 weeks later, to call and say, hey, we can do that. You know, so there's so many different dynamics that get involved when you got family or friend on the outside. Who's going to be making the calls to these places? Here's what you're going to need to know if you make the places. I'll send it to you, blah, 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 blah. So if it's family or friend that will be taking the lead, then have them call 4 months before getting out. 4 months before getting out. If somebody's homeless on the street, we want them to call direct to Crossroads. Because there's so many different dynamics on where they may be, how we handle things, etc., so on and so forth. As you've seen through these 9 categories we have of possibilities of housing people, transitional houses that specialize in ex-offenders, they generally will not let somebody into their place once they're out on the street. All right, and the reason they do that is they want to work for the guys who are in jail or prison, turning their life around on the inside, so that it gives them a transition from coming out of jail or prison nothing to transition in an orderly fashion. And what they know is many people that have already hit the street have already gone back to the dope, drug, alcohol game, etc. You know, thievery, etc., so on and so forth. The old lifestyle, we call it. So that is Roman numeral 8, timeline for type of contact. Roman numeral 9. Now this one's just for my teachers. What I'm basically saying here is, during this time, if we implement this into curricula, you just want to simply give people time 15 minutes or so, hopefully we'll shoot for, and you'll see it in your curricula set up how much exact time it is. But we want to give the people a little bit of time to ask some questions. And you as my teachers, you may not know the answer to it, but here's one that you can always do. I'm going to get that answer from the horse's mouth, Mr. Cloud, and I can just about 99.99% guarantee you he has seen this situation before. He'll give me a concise answer and a timely answer, and I'll bring it in next week to our class. So that's for our teachers there that they'll be doing on Roman numeral 9 question and answer types series. So let them do that. And just to review, the Roman numerals that we've been looking at in this have been Roman numeral 1 was what is Crossroads Reentry done and currently does and does not do. Our category, Roman numeral 2 was our 9 categories of getting a roof over somebody's head, basically housing, home plan kind of stuff. Category 3 was important words from us at Crossroads based upon our experience of helping thousands to get into places. Roman numeral 4 was the 7 questions. Roman numeral 5 is the inmates and ex-offenders' responsibility. Roman numeral 6 was who needs to be involved. Roman numeral 7 was the money levels and where would you point and that kind of thing. Roman numeral 8 was the timeline and for whatever type of contact it is, whether it be email, homeless on the street, etc., so on and so forth. And then Roman numeral 9 was questions and answers. And folks, that's going to do it on our home plan stuff. So thanks for your time. May God bless you. And as I try to end these videos, I always try to do it with this. Folks, we've been blessed beyond measure by God's grace. So let's go be a blessing.